all right. Thank you everyone for being here. Those are the Lunarla Talks, a place where we just invite different people from very different backgrounds, but all with the same goal of bringing something good for our health and our planet too. Why not? Today, I have the pleasure to have invited somebody who is one of the maximum experts I think I know about this topic. She's from bachelor to master to a PhD, and she's actually keep going on with a continuous learning about that topic, but from lots of different spaces, which I really, really admire. Her name is Elisa, and welcome to
Hello.
this space.
Thank you, Julia. Very nice of you. Your introduction.
No worries. All right, so I will say let's dive into our conversation straight away. My first question for you is that, as I just said very quickly, but you're welcome to explain better what's been your journey so far. But you have a very strong scientific and academic background, but you also have a very holistic approach to the theme of eating for all that concern the eating sphere. How these two words coexist in your work?
Good question. Yes, as you said, I have a strong academic background because I did my bachelor in nutrition biology, specifically because I wanted to know what we eat really has an impact on our health, and I continued doing research during my master, specifically on gut microbiology, and including and then later on with the PhD. So I'm always been passionate, and I'm still about science. But for me, science and an holistic approach aren't opposites. They actually complement each other. In fact, I've always been guided by curiosity and a deep openness to listening and learning. And of course, I rely on evidence-based research. Before I support any method or approach, I want to understand the data behind it. But at the same time, I recognize that well-being is complex. And there are many layers behind what we can always measure in a lab. So I try to hold both the rigor of scientific thinking and the openness to approaches that support happiness, balance, and connection, especially if they are meaningful to people and they align with what we know from research. So I believe that well-being is in this integration, using the best of technology and science while also honoring the human, emotional, and even spiritual side of health.
I do believe this is the future, to be honest, because I've been noticing that there are lots of ancient tools, let's call them this way, that are being used for so many years, and then modern science have been, just put them on the side, and now they, we have been opening up maybe on the scientific level to those tools. They are recognized to be valid, but of course, not all of them are still actually confirmed to be useful for us. So I find it extremely interesting, your approach as well. But let's go into this other topic on, let's talk to somebody who doesn't know much about this approach to food. So we're going to talk about what is it, mindful eating, and what is the difference with diet culture, which we might be more familiar with, but maybe we don't know how to label that. So if you can explain those two different approaches and what's the difference,
Yeah. So let's start with the term mindfulness, because it's where mindful eating comes from. Mindfulness, the most well-known definition of mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I know, Julia, you know about mindfulness very well as well. So in simple terms, mindfulness is about being intentionally present, fully engaged with what's happening right now. And interestingly, it is a well-studied practice that has been demonstrated to have meaningful impacts on physical and emotional well-being. So there is plenty of research showing how mindful practice is not just sitting and meditating these 10, 30 minutes, but in general, applying mindful in your whole life, in lifestyle, it's a really important tool for mental health. And specifically, mindful eating is the practice of paying attention to the full experience of food, before, after, before, during, and after a meal. So before eating, what does that mean? It means notice what your body wants. So what texture or flavors are appealing? What kind of hunger are you feeling? There is specifically an hunger and fullness scale from 1 to 10. You can just find it online very easily, and I found I think it's a very helpful tool to ask yourself question and understand if you are really hungry, what kind of hunger it is. It is really a stomach hunger, it's a more mental or emotional hunger, and all are okay. It's just more to acknowledge and understand where does it come from. Then during the meal, tune into your senses. Eating is not just a physical act. It's engages all the senses. So the visual appeal, the aroma, the sound, the texture, all contribute to the experience. Think about the high, how important it, even in marketing or even when you go to a restaurant, how the way that the meal look, it really impacts our experience. So we may ask ourselves, how does each bite taste? What's the texture, the smell? What's the pace at which I'm eating? What sensation arise as you chew and swallow? And then after eating, check in with how your body feels. Are you satisfied, full, contact? So yeah, basically mindful eating means practicing presence and patience, not during the meal, but throughout the food preparation as well. And importantly, it involves releasing judgment about what you eat, how much, how you feel about your choices. So connected to diet culture, here it's the main difference, because diet culture is this set of beliefs that value appearance and weight over well-being. It promotes the idea that there is a perfect way to eat, a perfect way to look, and that you should constantly be striving to lose weight or control your body shape. Differently, mindful eating, it doesn't focus on rules, on restrictions, on guilt. Instead, it encourages curiosity and self-compassion. When we should learn to stop labeling food as good or bad, but explore why you eat, what you enjoy, what feels nourishing to you. It shifts the focus from external rules to your own internal experience. And I understand one may say, okay, if I just listen my body, I will just keep eating biscuits and chocolate. But that will be probably the beginning, because those are the prohibited food and those food which are associated with a release of dopamine. But if you learn to listen your body, you will feel that no, that's not what your body needs after a while. And you will really crave those healthy food. So mindful eating, or more broadly speaking, intuitive eating, it's a way of eating that helps you feel more satisfied and connected with your own body's needs. And of course, it take practices. Even myself, I'm not very good yet. I try to ask every time I eat, okay, what do I feel? What's my hunger level? But it's not easy. And it takes practice, and any kind of mindful practices, but you will see that over time it becomes easier to notice hunger and fullness without self-criticism if you try to do little by little every day.
Absolutely, yes. It takes practice, but it's true that on the long term, maybe it won't ever be absolutely perfect, but surely your body's gonna show you which is the best thing to do. And honestly, I completely forgot to mention on the introduction that we actually co-created a guide together. And now that you were mentioning this, the body will know. I really think that this guide was also meant to be for this. So together, Elisa and I, together, we created this guide specifically for women, and understand how you can actually eat according to your cycle, to the phases of your cycle. My intention behind this guide was exactly that one. Maybe you're going to use it for the first, second, third, fourth month of of your life, but over time it's going to be intuitive and normal for you to understand which food you should be eating in that period of your life. And again, it's not always going to be perfect, because as Elisa said, it requires lots of presence, and presence is something that I believe it's the number one challenge we are having in the modern days, really allowing our mind to do not think in the future, do not think in the past, but stay in the moment. But over time, with a little bit of trial and error, eventually it's surely going to get better for sure. Well, thank you so much for all this explanation about that. Now I would like to change a little bit the topic. I personally come from a background in sustainable tourism. And the very first thing that people ask me when I mention that is that sustainable choices are more expensive normally. So let's dive in at this topic, but for the food field. Is it true that eating sustainable it's more expensive than other kind of eating?
So this is really a topic which I'm passionate about. It's not coming from the academic background, but I actually get closer to sustainable behaviors a bit during my academic career, but from a volunteer side. And then after I start really working close to regenerative agriculture, permaculture, top realities, which we are not going to talk about this now because it will require much more time. But thank you for your question. And I'm very happy to say that this is one of the biggest myths, as you said. Eating sustainably doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. In fact, some of the most sustainable choices are actually very affordable. For example, eating more plant-based meals like legumes, grains, seasonal vegetables often cost less than buying lots of processed product or animal proteins. Reducing food waste by planning meals and using leftovers can save also a lot of money. Buying local and seasonal products can be cheaper because you avoid the cost of transport and storage. So, of course, if you go to a supermarket, you will always find specialty products labeled or organic that can be pricey, but sustainable eating isn't about perfection or buying fancy brands. It's about small, practical steps that fits your lifestyle, like cooking more at home, supporting local producers when you can, and so making conscious choices within your budget possibilities. So no, eating sustainably doesn't have to be a luxury. It's often simpler and more accessible than people think. And interestingly, the production phase, when it comes to food products, especially raising animals for meat and dairy, as by far the biggest carbon footprint. Because of livestock farming, especially beef and lamb, they produces large amounts of methane, a very potent greenhouse gas. Growing animal feed requires a lot of land, water, fertilizer, energy, and deforestation to clear land for grazing or feed crops adds even more emissions. To give you a sense of a scale, producing 1 kilogram of beef emits up to 60 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent gases, while producing 1 kilogram of legumes like lentils, beans, emits less than 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent. While the other stages like packaging, transport, refrigeration do contribute, but the largest impact comes from what food is produced in the first place, not how far it travels. So rather than feeling guilty because I bought a mango coming from Southeast Asia, the first step I can do if I'm eating still eating meat is to try to eat more plant-based. And then you can start, try to buy more seasonal vegetable produced by local farmers, whether possible, because I understand, I travel a lot, I lived in Italy, in the UK, in Portugal, so I've noticed that sometimes it really depends where you live, it really depends if you have a market nearby, if you have farmers nearby where you can go and buy the food. So of course, it's always depends on your lifestyle, on your possibility, as you said, but there are way, and definitely no, it's not more expensive than not eating sustainable.
Okay, absolutely, yes. I feel although that somebody listening to this thing you just said, they might come up with the true questions or affirmations. The first person might say, yeah, but I know that the majority of deforestation is caused by, for example, the production of soy. So maybe it is not true that a vegetarian or vegan diet is actually more sustainable. We also know that although there are going to be other people who are going to say, yeah, but eating meat is actually important and it's at the base of health of people. So I'm going to tell you what I think about that. Then, of course, you can tell me whether you agree or you disagree on that. From my understanding, for what regards the first question, I know that the majority of those crops that are being farmed are actually for the animals that have been farmed in a bigger scale. Of course, replacing reducing the animal farming is also going to reduce the amount of food we have to grow for them. And for what regards the second one, I know for sure that maybe you can go a little bit in depth in this, or they can read it on the guide that we co-created together. But surely it's plenty of food that actually can replace those nutrients that they might be found in the meat, and a vegetarian diet can be absolutely as healthy.
Yes, you are correct. And in fact, if we think about the animal feed, like soy and corn, they requires a lot of land, water, fertilizer, as I mentioned. So I don't remember exactly the percentage, but most of the crops, like soy, for instance, it's used as a animal feed. So if most of people will turn vegetarian, these crops will be food for humans. So yeah, this is just one of the many statements that we have for going against this eating more plant-based. And the second as well, there is really plenty of scientific evidence nowadays, recent, but even not that recent. So it has been known. I mean, when I started studying already, it was very clear that having a plant-based diet is healthy, it's sustainable, it's possible for all stages of life, from children, or women, menopause, any phase of life, as long as you are followed by a person like a dietitian. Nutrition is someone who has the knowledge, because it really depends what kind of food you eat. Because of course, if you say, okay, I'm eating vegan and I'm just eating without paying attention that every day, or at least in a week window, you introduce all the macro and micronutrients that you need, you can in long term, you can have some deficiencies. But nowadays, it's very, at least for us living in countries where we have access to and all the nutrients that we need, it's absolutely possible. For instance, sometimes we say, okay, you don't have enough proteins. If you eat at least once per day a portion of legumes, and you drink plant-based milk, or you eat enough nuts, and you also implement some seeds, you can easily reach your protein intake level. Also because our body doesn't need that much, because we're not able to absorb more than 1.82 grams per kilograms of protein. The only recommendation is to take vitamin B12, because it's actually produced in our gut by our bacteria, which may be something we can talk about later. It may be of interest. But it's produced in the colon, so in the last part of the intestine, so it doesn't get absorbed. So that's why we have to, and meat contain, not all meat, but red meat, cow and beef, they contain vitamin B12. So people who eat meat don't have to introduce, but I think it's absolutely okay taking this pill, sometimes even one per week. It depends on the amount that it's in the prescription, in the pill. Yeah, so it's possible. We just need to be informed.
Yeah, and I reckon all of those recommendations are valid also for somebody who eats meat at the end of the day. So always make sure your diet is balanced and everything else.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
yes, I know that Anastasia had a few questions for you, so go ahead.
Thank you. Very interesting talk, and I have come up with two questions so far. One is about the mindful eating part, and the other one is about sustainable eating part. The one about mindful eating part is I was wondering what is the balance, because I was studying a bit like Ayurvedic eating, and there they are talking about keeping their routine, so eating always at the same time. If you're having breakfast at 10, then you should usually, you should always eat at 10, and then, just keep the schedule. Versus how does it fit versus intuitive eating, when you are eating just when you feel hungry. And the second question is regarding sustainable eating, because sometimes I'm struggling with cooking exactly the amount that I need for today, for example. Then I have a lot of leftovers, and then they sit in the fridge, and I know that I need to eat them for like 3 more days. But then the second day, I really don't want to eat it, and then what to do in this case? Because, it's like mindful eating versus food waste, so how, yeah, what's the trick? Thanks.
Thank you, Anastasia. So I don't really know about the Ayurvedic guidelines about nutrition, but I'm very curious about that. So I will be super happy to read more. So feel free to drop me some resources if you have. Yeah, what's the balance? In general, according to mindful and intuitive eating, you should eat not a specific time, but when your body feels to eat. Personally, I think you find the balance when you listen your body. That means that if you don't overeat, let's say in the evening, and I'm sure that also according to the Ayurvedic, it's not about eating too much with your eyes, but more eating a small amount of food, or at least what your body needs. So if you get into that routine, you will wake up in the morning with hungry, I would say. So you will establish this routine, but it's also it will match, it will fit with what your body needs. So I think on those guidelines, it could make sense. Although if you think about more our general lifestyle, sometimes I'm just thinking about we tend to overeat in the night. At least in Italy, we eat very late. So it's absolutely normal if you wake up in the morning where you don't feel to have breakfast, and you just skip the breakfast because your body doesn't feel to eat. You don't need more energy than what you have already stored in the body. Or if you have like you have to find a balance between also social events, and that's absolutely okay. That's also mean listening my body, being acknowledge that, okay, today I want to eat more because it's a special occasion and because I want to fulfill my mental hunger or my high hunger, and that's absolutely okay. So I think the important thing is to acknowledge why you are eating certain things or a specific moment. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
And to just as we have been mentioning about mindful eating and intuitive eating, just to be clear on the difference. So mindful eating are definitely related, but they're not specifically the same. Mindful eating, the focus is the awareness in the present moment. So the key idea is to pay full attention to your eating experience without judgment. And It's actually based on mindfulness and meditation practices. So it comes from Buddhism and mindful-based stress reduction therapy. While intuitive eating is the focus is rebuilding trust with your body. So the key idea is eating based on internal cues like hunger, fullness, satisfaction, emotional needs, rather than external rules or diets. So both reject restrictive dieting, emphasize listening to your body, and encourage no judgmental awareness. But we can see mindful eating more as a tool or a practice that we can apply in every meal or any food preparation process, while intuitive eating is this broader philosophy where mindfulness is one component of it.
And I think with this explanation, we can very easily jump in the next question that I have for you, because
There was a second question from Anastasia, I guess,
excuse
about
me. Sorry.
Remind me that.
Yeah, there was a second question, like what to do if you have a lot of leftovers,
Yes,
but
yes.
your body's telling you that I don't want
Yeah.
to eat it, but it's not sustainable to throw that away.
Okay. I love cooking and I love being very creative in the kitchen. Really, sometimes I just open the fridge or depending on what's available. So I I understand you. So I'm also bored about eating more often the same things. So the first easy things, if you have a refrigerator where you can put minus 15 degrees, and normally most of vegetable or preparation like rice or other cereals, grains, legumes are super okay. Vegetables, it really depends. Some vegetables they change the texture, so it's not ideal. That is one option, and I do that often with with grains and legumes a lot. Beans, lentils, you cook a lot and then you store in little amounts, like one portion. The other thing is to reinvent the preparation, which may be more useful for your case. For instance, let's say you have some boiled veg that the first time you just eat them mixing with your rice. The second time you can decide to put them in the oven, just put some, I don't know, bread crumbles on the top or some spices on the top and just make them roasted, or blend them and make fake plant-based meatball out of that. So this is something I do, like reinvent with the leftover, adding spices or new preparation.
Thank you. Another tool that I discovered for myself is having a partner that will eat anything that can finish all the leftovers. That's very helpful.
Nice.
All right, sorry for the interruption before. So the next question I actually had for you was more about your personal rituals that are actually related with food or nourishment. And yeah, I wanted to jump straight into, because we were talking about mindful eating, and I thought maybe there is something that connected also to this topic.
Okay. As I mentioned before, one thing I try to do is taking a moment before I eat and check in with myself, asking how hungry am I? What does my body need right now? It sounds simple, but it helps me with more intention instead of rushing. And in general, it's something I try to do, even if I know I will eat, I will sit with my family or friends and eat, but I like to really listen my body first. And I also try to not, when possible, to not be rigid about traditional meal times, as said before. I try to listen my body hunger signals rather than sticking strictly to breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But in general, if I follow my body, I get into that routine. So it's rare that I don't eat in that certain time frame. In general, I do, but I acknowledge that I feel hungry. And so it doesn't mean that I have lunch at 12 one day, I have lunch at 4 p.m. In general, even if you listen to your body, you get into some meal times, into a routine. And another ritual I love is cooking at least one meal a day without any distractions. As I said, I love cooking, so in general, I cook at least once a day without phone or screen or not even music or podcast because it feels like kind of meditative to chop vegetables, stir, taste, so be fully present in the process. I feel that then I enjoy even more the eating the meal itself. Yeah, those
Yeah,
are my.
absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you because I feel like sometimes people misunderstand meditation with sitting down with your legs crossed and just stay there trying to do nothing. But meditation can totally be what you just described. So simply really bringing the attention to what you're doing that exact moment without any distraction around you. So for sure, it's very well connected. So, at the end of this conversation, if there will be just one piece of advice that you would like people to hold on themselves among all the things that we said, what that advice will be?
Mm, to be curious about your relationship with food instead of judging it, whether it's what you crave, how you eat, or the habits you have built. Approach it with the curiosity and with the compassion, and also stop labeling the food as good, as bad, but rather create spaces for choices that genuinely nourish your body and your mind.
Great. Thank you so much, Elisa, for this last piece of wisdom. It was a very interesting conversation. Uh, Thank you, everybody who joined this conversation. Thank you, Anastasia, for your questions. Before we go, just a very quick reminder that we're going to have our yoga meetup next week. If you're already on the list, you're going to receive your invitation. And yeah, thank you, Elisa. And we surely stay in contact.
Sure. Thank you very much, Julia. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for Anastasia and Chiara.
Thank you. Bye.
If it's too much for the body, if you are, taking too many supplements or not, like that's kind of a thing. And also just the topic of how to balance your plate, the amount of carbs and fats and everything, how it's to make sure that you have enough of everything in your plates. So yeah, but maybe that could be something interesting for the next time.
Okay, yeah, just briefly answered. So,
Mhm.
in general, as guidelines, if you eat, if you follow a balanced vegan diet, let's say vegan, you just need the B12. And I do normally check my B12 level when I do my normal the blood test once every 2 years if I'm healthy, something like that. And also that like personally, I don't even take it all the year around. I normally take for a few months, and because my level were okay, and the iron is okay, so it's really personal. All the other supplements, unless it's something specific, you have a deficiency, you don't necessarily need, and especially because supposedly if you eat vegan, you have a very varied diet in terms of fruit and vegetables, and you will introduce a lot of vitamins, minerals, antioxidant, and the other micronutrient which is worth to mention is omega-3. Sometimes we say, omnivores people that eat fish, they eat omega-3. But in reality, also that it really depends what kind of fish you eat, because just certain type of fish, they have omega-3. So very often it happens that even omnivore people, they have deficiency of omega-3. For vegan people, it's very easy. You can just eat walnuts or flax seeds grounded or flax seeds oil a bit every day, and you are covered. So it's not a big deal. You don't really need other other supplements. In general, most of our supplements that are available don't harm you. So if someone is happy with that, it's like kind of the placebo effect. If it make you feel good, better, okay, fine. I'm not going to prescribe you or not going to recommend you, but if you feel that it makes you feel good, then it's absolutely okay, as long as you follow the prescriptions. So if you don't do overdose, in general, it's absolutely okay.
So Chiara had another question, I believe.
Yes. Okay. So, I've seen that, and as you told us, you have like a guideline for like nourishing your body following like your menstrual cycle. So I wanted to ask you maybe some tips on how to like get to know more your body through your menstrual cycle, because every time you hear about like diets, or not diets like thought like a restrictive thing, but more like a mindful way of eating, they always, I don't know, I think they always kind of based on a very mainstream way of eating. So as I know, most of the studies that have been carried out are normally made on purpose on like white men. So sometimes also I think difficult to like take into consideration that as having a female body, it doesn't restrictly connect to that type of diet, because we have different like hormonal phases. So like how to be mindful eating like what you need, taking into consideration that you have like 4 different phases that requires different like needs. And yes, I think that's a like a big question, but if you can give me like some like tips to get into it, would be cool.
Julia, this question is more for you.
You reckon? So Elisa and I, we actually created this checklist together. I'm not sure, Chiara, if you actually saw it already. We have a free guide.
I think I like saw it, but I didn't really like looked into. I think I'm gonna do it like soon, but if you can give me a sneak peek.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm actually opening it now, so I can actually share the screen with you guys, and you can actually have a proper look at this. Just give me a moment. Thank you for this question, by the way. I didn't expect it. What's going on here? Grant us to this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, oops, what did I do? Okay, sorry. I'm almost done. Here we go. Share. So you should be able to see my screen now. Yeah, great. Sorry, I couldn't see you at first. Yeah, so at the base of this, there is simply the idea that, as you correctly said before, every month we go through changes that are different from the normal cycle of a man. And simply, this is given because we have a reproduction system that is different from the one of a man. So it is important, actually, first of all, to acknowledge that. Second of all, to start to notice how this is for us as individuals, because it's true that it's for all women 4 different phases, but each one is going to have different fluctuations and different symptoms and different characteristics. So this is important to be said. For what regard the eating, it's a little bit of the same. What we want, my intention behind this guide was simply to give a general idea on what it could be great for the majority of us. But it's always important to first, as Elisa was saying, being mindful and being really in contact with our own bodies first and understand what we really need. Here, a little bit of overview of what's in this guide. What you want to remember during your menstruation is that your hormones are all at the lowest. We normally have taken consideration of estrogens and progesterone, There are actually more, but those are the two main characters, let's say. Well, those two are at the minimum, which means we also have least energy towards the external world, the outside world. So all the things that are related with the physicality or with socialization, we simply don't have the energies right now to do that. And for what concerns the body, what you really, really want to focus on is to help the body to really detox and to really let go all of the things that is letting go during the menstruation. And of course, at the same time, nurturing it. Anastasia before was actually mentioning Ayurveda. Well, according to Ayurveda, but also Chinese medicine, this is the time to eat all of those foods that are warming and grounding. So think about soups, for example, or root veggies, all those things that can actually help you to stay warm. Now, if you want to dive in a little bit more, of course, as you lose blood, you're going to lose also iron, which it's normal, it's within the blood. So you can actually you should at least be more mindful to replace this specific property. And one tip that I learned just reading here and there is actually that if you add a little bit of lemon on your, I'm vegetarian, so for example, on my veggies that contains iron, this is going to amplify the absorption of it. So this is something to keep in mind. You also want to get lots of healthy fats, so whatever is available for you, for sure, but think about healthy fats in order to sustain your body. Herbs and spices, those are meant to, again, warm it up. Think about ginger, for example. It's great. If you like ginger tea, this is the time for it. And also magnesium. You might sometimes, I mean, I know that I used to do, now not anymore, but I used to crave chocolate just before my menstrual cycle. And this is actually because I was craving magnesium at the end of the day. So sure, you can have your dark chocolate if you want to, but you can also think about other food that contain that properties specifically, and you will notice that this craving will disappear over time, of course. Now, follicular phase, this is when right after menstruation phase, this is when the estrogens are starting to rise back up. The end of this phase, of course, it's ovulation, when we reach maximum peak of this hormone specifically. What you want to do here is to help your body to get back into their energy. So what you want to do is keep supporting a little bit of detox, but at the same time supporting the boost of energy. So think about all of those veggies that help the detoxification, like broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy. This is my favorite personally, and so on. Think about also antioxidants. Well, guys, you understood. You know, that one. Those, for example, are agrumes like oranges, lemons, but also spinach, tomatoes, matcha, and green tea. I would like to make you notice some of those food that are in this list are actually the same in other part. So always remember that each food has different properties. So you can actually have the same fruit on vegetable or food in different parts, knowing that they have different properties. Sorry. Something else to keep in mind, this is mostly connected with the boost of energy, it's actually proteins. So in this case, you want to go for something that it's easier to digest. Sorry about my cough. Think about, for example, eggs, tofu, if you're a vegetarian, also cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. And you also want to support your digestive system with probiotic or prebiotic, which Elisa helped me to understand the difference between these two, because I would always confuse the two. So think about all of those food like sauerkraut, kimchi, if it's available to you. Yogurt or kefir are also great options, as well as garlic and onions. Sorry. Then we reach the peak of energy and productivity and mental strength. Once again, here we want to support our body in all of those functions. I'm so sorry about that. I was fine until now. So what you want to do is, for example, all of those food that are going to support your liver. As you see, some things are coming back once again from other food properties. all food that are rich in zinc. Healthy fats are coming back once again, and hydrating foods. So if you remember, during menstruation phase, I suggested, according to Ayurveda or Chinese family, to get on with all those foods that are warming. This is exactly the opposite of menstruation right now. So your body's already warm. It's already doing a lot. So you want sort of cool it down in order to maintain a little bit of balance within you. Finally, luteal phase. So we are in the second half once again of this cycle, going to the lower phase of energy. In this case, you want to sustain yourself with complex carbohydrates. So think about potatoes, pumpkin, quinoa, carrots, all those kind of food. Once again, the magnesium, again, you are about to enter the menstruation phase, so you want to start to introduce this kind of food as well. Vitamin B and vitamin B, yeah, as I said, sunflowers, potatoes, pistachios, and so on, and restart to introduce more protein. With that said, you might have noticed that, for example, there are going to be some fruit groups that are not present in one phase or another. It doesn't mean that you don't have to eat it at all, of course. You simply have to remember that in those phases in which they are present, you should just be more mindful to add a little bit more, or make sure you actually have it in order to really sustain your body towards the whole cycle. At the end of this guide, actually, Elisa gave me some extra tips that I didn't know about, and I simply put all of them here. So if you guys are curious, you can just go there and read it. This whole guide is completely for free, and I'm going to send you the link at the end of this conversation. I hope that was clear to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna have a look to it.
All right, I don't know what's going on with me now.
Aww, maybe like drink something warm.
I think I should, yeah. I'm ovulating now, but still, I think I should. All right. Do you guys have any other questions about those topics that you would like to discuss?
Now, all super clear and very, very cool. I will look into the guide. Thank you so much for working on that, you both.
Sure.
And about the other things, like to go more deeper about how to have a balanced meal, and maybe we can talk in the next meeting, or I can write you privately. And there are some very easy guidelines, even visual, how you can have a balanced meal with a certain amount of proteins and 50% of complex carbohydrates and vegetables, which can be helpful.
Yes, sorry, I was sharing with you guys the link where, if you want to grab the guide, it's on this link I share with you. But yes, of course, this is started as sort of, all right, I'm trying to picture myself in this situation. I'm gonna, for my weekly food shopping ritual, what do I buy this month, knowing that I'm in this part of the cycle. That's how it's meant to be. But of course, like, I feel like all the topics related with health are always so complex, and there is always so much to be said. So this is also important to remember that, those are just a small indication and guides, and then it's up to us to really dive in each one of those, or with the help of an expert like Elisa, for sure. All right. So I actually ended up recording this part. I'm gonna throw inside the the final recording somehow. So yeah, I don't know if you guys wanna. There's anything else you would like to say, but I guess no, or something else came up.
All good. Just thank you so much. Yeah, it was lovely.
Oh, great. Let me interrupt it again then.